everyone, welcome back to the Curated Shelf. My name is Nydia and good to have you all here. So last week I did a video on a few tarot decks that I've picked up upon recommendation from tarot tubers, and what I realized was that I had some really great feedback, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who watched that video and gave some comments, and yeah, it's been really good to hear from you all. And this week I thought I would do kind of like a bit of a dive into one of the decks that I will be using in the autumn. I've already begun to use it. And that is, as you can tell from the title, that is the right way around, the Crow Tarot. So this is a mass market deck. It's US Games production. I've spoken a little bit about this deck already before, so I won't go into it too much in that sense, but the author is MJ Cullinan. She's the artist and the author of this deck, and I understand she's based in Seattle. So one of the things that I absolutely love about this deck, first and foremost, and why I want to use it in autumn, is that autumn in Belgium is pretty much similar to the rest of the northern hemisphere. Yeah, so we kind of like end up also losing a lot of light. It gets dark. It stays dark until kind of like sometimes up to 8-9 o'clock in the morning when we get really deep into autumn, and just before the winter solstice. And we also kind of like, it gets dark really early in the afternoon as well. So given the fact that we have very little sunlight, it can really be one of the big changes that I see when it comes to the seasons. The other thing is, for me, is that autumn is really a time of hibernation. For me, it's a time of regeneration. I'm born in October as well myself. My birthday's in a few weeks. And it's just a really nice time for me to have like a cycle of kind of like endings and new beginnings coming in. And one of the things that I really like about this time of year as well is the colors that we see, which I think is like many people in the Northern Hemisphere. So yeah, so I decided to actually tap into the Crow Tarot for this month especially, and there are several reasons for it. Now, first and foremost, as I just mentioned, the author of this deck is MJ Cullinan, and she is based in Seattle. And one of the things that I understand about Seattle a little bit from friends and people I know who live there is that it's pretty grey, rainy as well. So yeah, there's something about an affinity towards that city which I really kind of like linked with. But the other thing that I really like about this deck is that it has very much, for me, it's again using the Rider-Waite-Smith system, but it's very reminiscent of, there's kind of like a feel to it which is a bit similar to the city and an urban vibe. Now, you can see in some of the cards here, so for example in the Three of Swords from the backdrop, sometimes I feel like there's a building perhaps in the backdrop of that card. Or another one that I've actually picked it up in, again, here you've got it, it's in the Ace of Pentacles. Really, for me, somewhat of a slightly urban setting going on there. So there's a lush garden, but there's a building in the background. And what I really liked about this deck is that even though I live in the city, it kind of like helps me to tap into an energy of nature and the woods or the wild in that sense, but also at the same time acknowledging that we are still in an urban setting to an extent. I don't know how else to put it. It's just got such a great mixture of the different energies. And for me, I really like that about this deck. The other reason that I picked up the Crow Tarot for this time of year, I mean, you just can't say anything bad about this deck. It's just so beautiful. Sorry, the other way around. Is that the other thing about it that I really like is that I've spoken about this a little bit before, is that it's got a color palette which I couldn't understand before why I really like this color palette. And then I realized that the deck that I use as my foundation deck and a learning deck is the Rider-Waite-Smith. So I use the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Rider-Waite Radiant Tarot in particular. This is a 2003 version, US Games production again as well. And I picked it up 5-6 years ago when I decided to delve into tarot. I remember I went onto the Amazon website, as many people do, I think, and kind of like was just looking at reviews and, you know, what is the classic deck to buy. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, basically. And I came across really good reviews for the RWS, and the Radiant White Tarot was like really standing out to me. I just thought, okay, let's give it a try. And the copy and the edition that I have here is the 2003 version. Now, it's a very standard deck. These are the back of them, and you can still pick this up on Amazon. But what I wanted to show you was the colors of this deck. Now, many of you have already seen it, but it's a very radiant profile. The colors really pop. I think some of the deck has had the finer lines that I see in the classic RWS taken away. So it has kind of like imagery, which is just more block color. That's what I think anyway. I'm not a design expert, by the way. It's just my own kind of like my own take on this. But it has more, for me, block colors, which I personally really like. I like them in fashion as well. So that's what really drew me to this deck originally, I think, without even realizing it, you know, and picked it up. And now it's one of my foundation decks basically for learning. But I see here again in the Temperance card, you can see that the color just really pops of that blue, and of the sun in the background, and even of the feathers of the angel of Temperance. They really pop. So for me, this deck is very it's very close to my energy of needing colors that really are bright and stand out, or colors that really are just very much in your face kind of thing. And you might think, well, how does that connect with the crow? And it took me a while. I couldn't understand it at first. So let me pick up the deck again. It took me a while to understand, let me get it the right way around as well, what was really drawing me to the cards. And then you can see it here. There's something for me that makes me think that this deck is got that same, maybe it's because it's the same publication, US Games, I don't know, but it's almost like the color palette reminds me of the Radiant, the Rider-Waite Radiant, but slightly muted. And that's why or somewhat muted, but that's why I think one of the things that I like about this deck is, again, that it's very block colors. There's less fine lines in some ways. You've got fine lines there, but it's just, there's something about this, and maybe it's the collage imagery, maybe it's the color palette that's used, but it just pops against the background really well. And so for me, this deck has just really been great in terms of it also has like a color thematic, which is very reminiscent of the foundation deck that I'd use. And so yeah, so it's kind of like a little bit of a homecoming again. The other reason why I like the Crow Tarot, and I think I just want to mention this here, is that traditionally the RWS system, it has different people in it. So first and foremost, let's go back to this again. We have, you know, here we have the Fool, a young man from what I can see. We have, like, you know, the Emperor, and with the beard, you know, some kind of like a very mature male energy. Or, you know, we have here, let me get another one here, a young man for the Seven of Wands. And then we have here another one. Let me just find another one for us. There's a lot of men actually, but here we have the Queen, and, you know, and a young, for me, more, I don't know what age, but she's young for me, Queen of Swords. And one of the things that I kind of really liked about the Crow Tarot, and I didn't realize until I started working with it, is, of course, all the crows are ageless, and for me, there's no gender here. Of course, crows have genders, but there's no gender here for me as I see it. And sorry, that's the wrong way around again. But again, I really like the fact that it's just an animal, you know, as such. It's just a winged creature, basically, and for me, a very fierce or a very clever winged creature. And I really like that about this deck, that it removes a lot of barriers in that sense. So I sometimes do have it where I see a card, and if I see the Emperor, I mean, I love the Emperor energy. It's an Aries energy, and it's that energy of the Ram, but there's something about the Emperor which sometimes can feel very kind of like constrained because of the whole outlook upon that card. You know, it's meant to be representation of like a portal or a window, and there's something about that energy that sometimes I feel a little bit contained by it when I see it, or as if there is somebody going to tell me off anytime soon, you know, for not doing the right thing within the empire, that kind of thing. And maybe that's my own projection onto that card. But what I really like about the Crow is that, of course, you know, and I'm going to try and now find the Emperor card. I've mentioned it, so I better go and find it now. But what I really like about the Crow is that the Crow Tarot is that is taken away, because now we just have a very simple symbol. That's another card that I want to show you in a moment. But we just have a very simple symbol of the animal, and I think that really does the tarot justice in a different way, because now I can just really focus on the symbols rather than projecting my own possible kind of like misgivings onto it, or my own projections. I can just take it for what it is. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that that's something that I really love. Here it is. Here is the Emperor. So first and foremost, I love the fact that the Crow is seated on top of the Ram, which I think is a bit of satire for me. And the other thing is that I love the way that, you know, there's this throne that's superimposed onto the mountain, and the feathers around the neck of the Crow. I mean, it just, for me, looks like this animal owns it, rather than, you know, they're boxed in by anything. It's almost as if, you know, this Crow for me is more of an Emperor sometimes, I think, than the more traditional image. So that's why I wanted to show you this card. Another card that I absolutely love about in this deck is this one, which is the Devil. Now that goat for me is just, I mean, there is no mistaking about the fact that Crow is looking straight at me, and I just really love how it's chained the I think it's a blue tit. Yeah, it's chained the blue tit, and there's something about this that I think the artist and the author has really thought about how to capture the reader's imagination and make me really think about what I'm seeing. I really love the red in this fire. It's a Capricorn, a cardinal sign. So I really like how she's captured some of the colors of the Devil in this image. So that's the other reason why I really want to work with this deck in the autumn, or at least early autumn. And the other point that I just wanted to bring up was that this deck for me, yeah, so as we go into, we've just entered into Libra energy, and I find that Libra is a time of, well, first and foremost, it's a cardinal sign, it's early autumn, it's very reminiscent of partnerships, and it being the 7th house of the zodiac and so forth. That what I really like about the Crow is that it's almost as if when I read the Crow, it's a partner, and that has helped me to kind of like see this deck especially, and the energy of the Crow as accompanying me. But saying that, I think that's a really good segue into how I'm using the deck that I've prepared with it, which is this week, which I've actually started to use already, which is Goddess Dream Oracle by Wendy Andrews. Now, I saw a review of this by Shuffle Tarot, Nina from Shuffle Tarot. She bought it, and it's a Rockpool publication, and Wendy Andrews, as I mentioned, is the author and the artist. I just want to check if she's the artist as well. I think she is, but I want to make sure that I get that right. Just give me a moment. And just want to check. The author and the illustrator. So let me just check about the author and the illustrator. Yep, Wendy Andrew. She's from the south of England, which is really good to see. But she is also the illustrator of the deck, so it is the same person that's doing both the narration and the images. Now, Nina from Shuffle Tarot picked up this deck, and I just want to first show you the back of the deck because I think it's lovely. She picked it up, or Rockpool sent it to her, and when I originally saw the review of this deck, I thought, not sure. And the reason is, and I'll show you now, the images are beautiful. The cardstock quality is great. Nothing wrong with any of that. The cards are a bit big, but I think that's typical oracle size. Here's a comparison with a tarot card. It's a typical oracle size card for me. And yeah, the cardstock quality is wonderful. No problems there. And the card backs, as I just mentioned before, these are just absolutely beautiful. I mean, look at that. Can't fault it. So, but when I first saw this deck, I was a little bit hesitant, and I'll say why. I felt a little bit like there was a lack of diversity in it. And this is where I'm going to put the big elephant in the room. I'm going to address it. Sometimes I feel as if I can't connect with a deck if I can't see myself in the deck, which sounds a bit strange, but if none of the images are reminiscent of the people around me or even myself, I'm a bit hesitant about it, which means that I do sometimes struggle with tarot decks for sure. However, I always take into context the theme, and if it's a tarot deck that's representing a specific era or a specific time. And then when I put that in, of course, I'm not going to always expect images which have a certain ethnicity in them. Now, some people will say, well, no, they still should. And that's a debate. I can't go into that right now. But when I first saw this deck, I did think, well, there's this beautiful image here, but is there enough diversity in this deck? However, I bought it. I thought, let's give it a try. It's a very reasonable price. I think it's around somewhere between 10 to 15 euros. So it's very reasonably priced. I bought it from Book Depository. You can also get it on Amazon. But then, and this is beautiful actually. But then when I looked at the cards again, what I started to see, and I'm probably projecting here, is a slightly Northern Hemisphere Nordic energy that I feel from this deck. And I can't quite place it. But sometimes when I see it, I feel as if I'm going to go off towards a winter theme, which sounds a bit strange, but that's how it feels. I think the deck is something used all year round, so it's not based towards winter in particular. I think it would be a beautiful deck to use in the summer as well. And then as I looked at the images, increasingly I realized that there is enough diversity for me. There is enough of a connection. And the more I saw the landscape and I saw the illustrations, the more I fell in love with this deck actually. So I am really grateful that I kind of like pushed myself out of my own kind of like, how can I put it, projections. And I picked it up and I saw more than what I would have initially have just thought, oh, well, I don't see enough different cultural diversity, so I'm just going to skip it. I'm glad that I stepped out of my own kind of like, how can I put it, my own barrier in that sense. And so yes, so I picked up this deck. But how do I use it with the Crow deck? And I thought this would be the interesting part of this whole video, which is, so for me, the Crow deck, the Crow Tarot, sorry, is very much kind of like, this is the main energy that I'm working with. And I realized that I wanted a familiar for the Crow. And so for me, what I found fantastic about using the Wendy Andrew deck, the Goddess Dream Oracle deck, is that I actually use the humans as the familiar for the Crow. And it's almost as if this time the human is accompanying the Crow, and the Crow is kind of like the star of the whole reading. And again, you know, just showing you again a few more of these images. What I like about it is that it's almost as if the goddess appears to accompany the Crow as I look at any kind of like readings or any kind of spreads using the Crow deck. And I really like that. I really like the fact that I've kind of like turned the tables on who is the main protagonist, and it's almost as if the goddesses are making a cameo appearance for the crow. And so yeah, it's been a bit of fun. And so that's what I've been using this week. I think I will continue to use the crow at least for another couple of weeks or more. I have a lot of decks to choose from right now, but I really like the Crow Tarot because of its very autumnal feel especially. And I hope you enjoyed this video. More will be coming in the next few weeks. I'm going to try and see if I can swap around which days I do tarot, which days I do, sorry about the noise from back there, but which days I do tarot, which days I do probably more on literature again. I know that there's always an interest in books and literature as well from the people that are following this channel. But yeah, if you happen to be using this deck or another deck for autumn, let me know. And if you want to see more tarot and oracle videos, again, just looking forward to hearing from you. So thank you again, and see you next week.